pop on here real quick and just do a brief disclaimer given the SAG-AFTRA strike about this next episode. So Steph and I interviewed Dan Robbins, who is an actor based out of the UK, and this was recorded prior to the strike. So any conversations around any potential struck work was done prior to the strike rules. So he is in the clear because we certainly don't want to get him into trouble. We had such a great time talking to him, and we want to make sure that he has a long and successful career as an actor. He's a fantastic guest. So we know you're going to enjoy the episode. We certainly enjoyed making it. So thanks.
Hi guys, my name is Steph. I am a fantasy photographer from the UK.
And I am John Cruz. I am a portrait photographer from Philadelphia in the US. And welcome to Artist Alchemy.
Woo! We've got a guest with us today, the wonderful Dan, who I actually met on a photo shoot. So Dan, do you want to kind of introduce yourself, tell us what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. A pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And it was obviously lovely to work with you, Steph, on that photo shoot. A fantastic day out. So my name's Dan Robbins. I'm a British actor born and raised in the southeast of England. I currently live in little old London, and my kind of work, I used to say I sort of just have one base in London, but find with the job itself, I'm traveling all over the country. So I don't really have one place I ever am for too long, which is both crazy and fun at the same time. But yeah, just your little old pokey actor.
Well, not so little, I don't think. Tell us about where you've been tonight.
Also, what was that?
Tell us about where you've been tonight. You're talking about a technique.
Oh God, yeah. I've just come back from a course. Basically, we're going through some Meisner and method training and trying to go through some education for some new actors. Myself as well. I try to keep retraining and relearning things because I think you can never know too much, and if you ever think you know too much, you definitely don't know enough. And then last week I was in Wales shooting a TV show out there. So I was there for 9 days, continuously 14-hour days. That was crazy. Beautiful part of the country, though. Beautiful part of the country. And then before that I was in Essex, and before that I was in I've been everywhere. It's crazy.
So as I said, not so little actors. So what other things have you been up to in all these other different places?
So yeah, there's
if you're allowed to tell us, of course.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I can so I don't get into any particular trouble. But no, one of them I'm working on, which I was in Essex for. That was kind of the final stages of filming for one of my feature films, which is I was hired on to play the one of the hero characters, and it's one of his final scenes. So it's quite an intense bit of filming out in Essex. Quite emotional as well, because I've gone through this journey. We were filming in Ireland for some of this film. For about 3 weeks, I think it was, and you kind of get this connection with the character you build. So I was playing the final stages of this and living his moments, and that felt quite beautiful to kind of bring his story to a suitable end for what happened. Before that, yeah, the Welsh one, that was a TV show I definitely can't say anything about, but it was
secret promotion.
Honestly, it was, they put me so much red tape. I'm like, I can't even say anything about it. But it was incredible. We filmed on a mountain. They had actually basically built something into this mountain, which made it very of the time that they were doing it for the production. It's so difficult. It's really hard to but also well, I went to Birmingham. That was lovely. That was a short shoot for actually I was helping out a friend of mine, third year university student. They try and put some productions together and try and get their dissertations. So I don't do a lot of that anymore, but when it's like a mate and I have time to help them out, which is very rare, I can pop on for a day or two and do that there in Birmingham and wherever they might be. But yeah, nice. It's been a whirlwind. Even just the last 3 months, to be fair. I think I've worked and been in at least 8 different places for a period of time.
That's a good whirlwind, though, right?
I'm very grateful. I am incredibly, because this was not the position of a lot of my acting friends, so I'm very aware how fortunate I am to be in my position, and I try and give back and help others with that, like when they're struggling to find their work or they're just starting out. I've actually got while I was working on another film, I was coordinating a production team that was doing another shoot in Sheffield. And that was for my own film. So it was an action film where we're trying to get a bunch of new actors, some credits, and we wrote a story, and I built a whole sort of producing team around it, and fight coordinators and armorers and lighting effects, camera people. So they were sent up to Sheffield to do that while I was doing another film in a different part of the country. So that was crazy.
So this is I've got so many questions.
Go on,
obviously the you are the whole acting life is quite feast or famine. So you're in a feast at the minute, so that's great. How did you, so if someone was listening now, they're like, oh, I really want to be an actor, or I want to be in the production side of things, like, how do you said, oh, I've given these people, I want to give back a little bit, I've put this production together. Where do you start with that? Like, that's a big piece of work, right?
I would never have jumped into creating a production as my first ever thing, because I think, as with anything, I think my dad always taught me very well with that. It's like, learn the job of the janitor so you can earn the right to be the CEO. It is quite beautiful. He's a very smart and very wonderful man. But the education that comes behind that, it makes a lot of sense, because I wouldn't want to jump into something like creating a production before I even understood what the term producer or executive producer meant, and what the term actor meant, and what they did and their responsibilities. So when I started acting, it was all a bit of a happy accident, to be fair. It was a junk email that came into my inbox, and it was, you know when companies do these we miss you emails, like come back to us emails.
Yeah.
So there's a small platform in England where they have a load of job boards for very low budget, very early on acting stuff. And I was just in that frame of mind. It was the middle of COVID. I was like, I wonder what this is.
So it Star Now by any chance?
So did you like just to back up, like, I want to get a little more of your backstory. Like, when did you get inspired by acting, and when did you start to say, okay, I'm going to pursue this in some manner? Like what prompted that? Like, how, like, was that just recently, or was that like something that you've always been pursuing and then you just found your niche?
It was a very recent thing. It happened in the very first few weeks of COVID happening. I went traveling just before that because I quit a god awful job with a god awful boss, and it caused me to reflect on what I actually found important in my life, and if I was even going in the direction I thought I should be going in. So I used to work behind 3 screens, being an e-commerce merchandiser, a bit of coding and stuff, and very, very not social, very not in front of everyone, and definitely not quite as visual as I am now. And it was kind of nice that this person didn't treat me so well, because it forced my hand to disappear and rethink who the hell I was, because you lose yourself if you get so into a methodology or more thought process and don't really take yourself to a place where you can reflect on yourself. So I went traveling with myself. I have a backpack on my back and disappeared to Latin America for a while. And I was kind of like, well, what is Dan? What does he want to do? What does he want to have in this world? And I kept coming back to the idea of doing something that could help change people's perspectives, or change people's feelings, or give people emotions, or have them cheer for something, or hate for something, or yearn for something. And I kind of fell onto the acting thought process because of that email, and because I didn't want to delete my junk emails that day. And yeah, like you said, Star Now, that was the process that kind of led to that point. And so my career is all thanks to a reminder email from a job board platform that said, why don't you check us out again? Because
that's incredible. I didn't know that. I thought you'd be, and like when I first met you, I was like, he's an actor. Like straight away, like just how you carry yourself, your posture, how you like use your voice, everything. I was like, he's an actor. And then you were like, oh yeah, I'm an actor. I was like, you were, but I didn't know it was only in COVID time.
Yeah, it's funny. Occasionally you'll hear stories of like, an actor later in life deciding, okay, I'm going to do this, and then they become, and then they fall into the role. But I think oftentimes when I hear stories, it's like, oh, I was in school plays and I adored it, and I really wanted to like, study it and do it, or I was inspired by this movie or that movie. So it's interesting, like, that your pivot was so stark and so like, okay, and now like you're in that place where you are a working actor, which, as Steph said, like, it's also like, that's not like you're in an industry where you have more interviews than probably any other industry there is. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like how many, like if you think about any other industry, you're getting interviewed. It's like, okay, do I get the job or I not get the job? And actors, you have to go through that more than anyone. And it's like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not even something you did. It's like, oh, there's just somebody who fits that part just a little bit better than you did. And it's like, all right, on to the next. Like, so how did you get into the mindset of like, okay, now this is the job? Like, this is, you said you were doing the 3 screens, the e-commerce stuff, like,
Yeah.
and then now you pivot into this whole other world. Like it's like fundamentally different.
Mm.
So
Oh
what did you
God,
do? What was your first step?
that is a good question. God, yeah, I know a lot of my acting friends. They have a very interesting mindset because they went to like drama schools and they done all this like early stuff like you mentioned, John. And our mindsets are very different, but they did drop me some nuggets of information to understand how it all works and what to expect and what to learn. The idea of an audition has been kind of ingrained into me to think of it as an opportunity to show your work, like show you working. It may not be to get the job, but it's an opportunity to be like, this is what I do. I'm now going to work for you for 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever the audition might be. And for the 500, 600, 700, we're verging towards maybe nearly 700 auditions I've had since I've started. It's all a pleasure because you get to understand characters and understand people, meet new people. Some people you realize you weren't right for the role for, but they're just lovely to work with, and they've brought you on for other projects. It's all this learning curve that I wasn't expecting to have kind of hit me. It was all so abstract because, like you say, I mean, before it goes to an interview, do you want me or not? It's like
Yeah.
it's so unfathomable. But then I can draw so many comparisons to real life as well, and it's no different to taking on one of these jobs you end up booking and then having to learn how to use Excel or how to do complex math equations. It's same as getting the script. You have to understand what this character does. You have to go through the admin. You have to go through the boring stuff that isn't quite so glamorous that everyone believes the world of acting is all this glamour. It's a lot of sitting at your desk, writing your lines out, and then rehearsing those lines in front of a mirror until you get sick to death and looking at your face. It's so weird.
Do you talking about like characters going over the script and stuff, do you use a certain technique yourself to get into character, or like a creative process that you've kind of developed as you've developed in your career? What's your kind of thing that you do or don't do?
That's a really good question because I think I'm still learning that as I go. Like I found some roles just require repetition, and it's quite simple to get into that mindset because I might be able to very closely link it to past experience. Fortunately, having lots of work experience in so many different places has given me a lot of life experience, which is great. When there's some very particular roles that maybe are a bit more out of my remit, like a serial killer or things like that, not really
Have you
my
played serial killer?
Oh yeah, it's
No person,
probably the
like
most fun.
how method do you get with that? Like you have to like,
Yeah, how much
I'll be
prep work
safe.
do I put into it? Oh God, I please got to check my garden, Jesus. But in all seriousness, like it's strange. Like the ones that are so far removed from who I am, I find the most enjoyable to get into because you're able to write out. It's a method that works for me. Sorry, one of the methods. It was with the serial killer was to write out who was this guy when he was in school. Okay, let's give him something that happened here, or why would he have twisted this way? Would it have been like a family issue? Would it have been a relationship that broke him? Would it have been a marriage? Would it have been a lost baby? What would have caused this guy to get into this headspace and become this person? And then where do I sprinkle in the magic and the nuggets of what makes it entertaining for people, I guess, is the biggest thing, because you can make a character make sense, but then you've also got to make it fun for the audience in a method that makes sense for them. So it's trying to think about everything from a perspective of how it's going to be received as an audience. So recently with the Meisner method I mentioned, if I want to connect with my screen partner, I like using Meisner a lot because it's a very self-aware technique where I'm focusing so much on them, I forget about myself. I'm irrelevant. It's all about how they're responding to what I'm saying. Like I might be like, oh, you're you're a tree right now, or something silly like that, which is hilarious. But it's like you read the emotion it puts on their face because you've seen them move in a way that maybe reminded you of, I don't know, a leaf blowing in the breeze or something, and you see their reaction, you engage in them in that way, and you understand them, their headspace, their mindset. And that's another technique I've learned. And all of these ones, there's never going to be a set one for any character. It has to adapt. There'll be some that I'm more fluid and comfortable with, but there's going to be a lot that will come up over my time, I'm sure, where I'll be like, oh, I might need to use a bit of method for this one, or I might need to go down the Meisner techniques, or even Lecoq, understanding the sort of tensions we hold in our bodies for different moments, why that character would be at a 5, which would be like a scatty kind of where's his headspace kind of thing. It's so much, it gives me crutches to work on, which basically means I can perform for you guys, the audience. So yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go a little bit deeper on the Meisner technique? Only because it sounds like that's something that could be applicable outside of acting. Like just in, as far as like if you're working in any type of, almost every industry, you're interacting with people, and the greatest skill is listening and responding to them. And this sounds like a technique that actually like really kind of examines their behavior and takes it off of you, which is a great skill for any person to have. So how does that work? Like, am I off base with how that works, or is that?
You'll be fine. I mean, honestly, John, it's open to interpretation. I think it's the biggest thing when it comes to these skill sets. So Meisner, it's a very repetitive exercise. It can be something as top level as you're wearing a blue shirt, and they're like, I'm wearing a blue shirt, or you just moved your eyebrows, you moved your eyebrows. But also, it could be like understanding the intricacies of someone's emotions and understanding how they respond to things you say. So it's like it encourages empathetic awareness, so you're understanding how someone feels. So I remember an exercise we've done recently. It was going through. I was referencing someone's body position in particular. They were sitting themselves very still, like Buddha, and they kind of gave themselves a little shimmy on their sort of their bum when they were sitting down. They were like, "Oh, I like that you thought that of me." And I'm like, "You like that I thought you sat like Buddha?" And they're like, "I like that you thought." And it's like just that awareness of someone. And absolutely, you can apply that to so many industries. I mean, Jesus, when you're working with anyone face to face in any type of industry, understanding and being able to read a person to understand how they feel and how to better serve them with your role or your job, or to be a better manager, to understand how your employees are feeling if you're working in an office, for example, and then engaging how someone's positioning themselves towards you and how they're responding to what you're saying, even if it's just during a meeting and not doing repetition. You can see like how are those reports. You can see someone shuffle in their seat because you're paying attention to it at that point. It's like it's just a whole beautiful awareness of people and emotions. And I think we get far too caught up in life just thinking about ourselves.
Said about getting into characters, like some you have to develop. I guess the ones that are closest to you in your everyday life, they come quite easily, but those who are like completely opposite, even though they're more fun to play, that they're the ones that you have to work a little bit harder on, even though they're more fun to play. You have to go a little bit deeper.
It depends on the actor. I can't speak for everyone. I know that people are very different. So there's no one answer for this one. But from my perspective, I find it really easy to be anyone but me. And I also find it a lot more fun. So yeah, like the serial killer is a good one because it's hyper reality, So I could quite easily kind of play with it and have fun with it. Like, oh, what if I got really mad that someone stole a sandwich of mine and I wanted to kill them for it? Like, how would that emotion come out? And it's the silly kind of hyper extension of that, which was actually quite easy to come by because it meant I got to play big compared to just me. And even the big reactions will look small, which is the crazy part of it, because you do something so huge to who isn't you that it becomes so, that was received quite as a strong message. Like, I might have reacted to something as me, but this person is just stone cold face, like completely nothing going on in their face when someone's just told them they're leaving them or their girlfriend's walking out on them. They're like, it's crazy. I realize, it's crazy. Yeah.
Do you ever find it difficult to kind of get out of character? Like, I know some actors have said that when they've gone home, they find it, or when a show is finished after like a 6-month do, or a film's finished, they're a bit like, I find it really hard to unhook from that character. Do you ever find that at all? Or you're like, no, that leaves at the door. Bye. And back to me again.
Early days, I think I got caught up in holding on to a character, but that's just bad practice. If you don't decompress after every scene or every session, then it's just bad practice as an actor. You shouldn't be putting yourself through that. That's going to cause mental harm, because we're here to kind of create and entertain and take it seriously, but it shouldn't be difficult to pop out of that moment, because if you're a good actor, you can go in, you can go out. And I definitely couldn't do it when I first started. I couldn't go into character and come out of character because I was so new. It's like a crutch to stay in character. The capacity to draw yourself out of it and recheck yourself is probably the healthiest approach that I've been taught by very good acting coaches that have said, just don't do that to yourself, because you'll end up losing parts of you. We call it substitution. It's a very heightened form of method that you probably should avoid, where you take this character's life and it starts to imprint into your life and changes who you are. And I think we've lost some incredibly wonderful talents to things like that. Allegedly, obviously, I wasn't on set with them. Like Heath Ledger was an incredible actor playing the Joker. And his involvement in the character, unbelievable. So R.I.P. The guy's just fantastic. And I think we risk that danger, because we want to be here to entertain people for years, for decades, and that healthy approach to understanding yourself and when to decompress, like yoga, meditation is huge with the acting community, and just kind of mindfulness in general. We always try and advocate that, because it's so important to still be there next week, and people need you to still be there, and you need to do it for you to still be there, because if you lose yourself, you feel so bad within your space. I mean,
I saw an interview. Do you guys watch Succession, or have you watched Succession?
Such a good show. Oh my god.
So I saw an interview, I think with Brian Cox was talking about, like, I think Jeremy Strong he's a method actor, and he said he was genuinely worried about him, how much he embodied the character while on set. He's like, I don't think that's healthy long term. Now, I think that every actor has their own way to tap into that character. So it sounds like you have moved to these. I switch it on when the time comes, and I switch it off when we're off. Like, is that kind of how you keep that balance?
100%. That's what they pay me for. Like, I don't want to be a difficult person to work with. I want to be a nice person to work with. So I think if I was always a not nice person to deal with, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what language I can use on the show. If I'm always a not nice person to deal with, sorry.
Use what language you want. I've said fuck, so it's fine. Go ahead.
Fucking great, love that. But no, it's such a thing where I have to be able to switch off, because I think it gives my crew and other castmates the respect they deserve as well, because they're all running around doing their job. And if I'm suddenly a character who has to be stern, hateful, deceitful, and just outright evil, then that's not a person you want to be spending time, like downtime in the snack tent, or downtime having a cold one after work. It's got to be done in a way that you can be a nice person to work with, because I think fundamentally people want to work with nice people, yes, that can do the job, but I want to go to work with someone who's going to make me happy to be there, not be anxious to be there. And 100%, you got to switch that off. Like, you pay
and we
me
don't
to do
want
the
the
job
prima
on the
donnas
scene.
either.
Right. It's so important to just be real and be you, not be someone who isn't you, because you might struggle to jump in and out of being a bad guy for a week.
I mean, it's like any. Go on, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
It's like any industry. You don't want to, like, even if you work in an office as admin, you don't want an arsehole of the office, right? So I guess it's
There's
like
always
any.
one, though. There is always one arsehole.
Yeah, there's one at my work that's about to leave tomorrow, and I'm like.
Well, I was gonna say, like, your approach to that, like, and my background, I worked in an office for a number of years, and one of my degrees is in business, and thinking about, like, the psychology of organization, and just your approach to that, plus what you were talking about with the auditions. You're going in, if you don't get the job, you don't get the job, but you're building relationships, and it's those relationships, I think, is what makes you a working actor. Is that, like, I didn't get this job, but, like, I established a relationship for something down the road. It sounds like you are somebody who likes to, I'm gonna make my best impression every time, because it may not work out this time, but it's going to work out at some point. You're a long-term thinker, it sounds like.
I hope so. I don't want to be in this for like 3 or 4 years and then be like, you know what, I'm going to go back to working behind a desk, because that would just I've been there, you know. I don't want to go back to it, and I'm enjoying this side of life.
Dan, I can vouch for this, that you are that type of person. So obviously I met you on that photo shoot, and I was working with lots of different models throughout the day. And then before you left, you made a point to come up to us. You shook our hands, said it's so great to meet you. And both me and Brad were talking before we got on this. So Brad's my partner, but who's also a photographer. And he was like, "Oh yeah, Dan." He made a point to come up and say bye, really nice guy. I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So you definitely do that, and I absolutely, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like that is 100%, which makes you memorable, and you seem like a nice guy, like, oh, he'd be ace on set. But also that's obviously, as well as your talent, is why you're a working actor.
Well, I'm
Absolutely.
glad I practice what I preach. I don't just talk about a load of rubbish and then don't do it myself.
It probably helps that you were Flynn Rider in Tangled as well, though. So
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Disney to pass me that guy. Sort it out. Come on. And I don't even get, like, this is crazy. I'm starting to build this fan base where they want me to play Flynn Rider. They're starting to be obliterately assured that they have to see me play Flynn Rider. I'm like,
I
I'm
told
gonna
you
be
that
okay
from
with
day
that.
one.
Like, I'm
You've
just
got to
waiting
do
for
the
the cool
smolder
down.
though.
Oh, okay, got to practice the smolder. Is this audio or video as well?
So it's going to go on YouTube and
Yeah.
on podcast as well. So go for it,
Okay,
Dan.
so
Give
if I
your
can practice
best
the smolder, here
Flynn
we go.
Rider. Go for it. Go. Go on.
Hey.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
learn from the
hilarious. I
best,
love it.
ladies and gentlemen.
I assume that was not your first attempt, is it? Like you've been practicing that a little bit.
Honestly, I get, if I'm ever like, because I try and live stream with as many of my fans as possible to kind of show appreciation, but they'll always get like 5 or 6 or 10 of them in the comments, and it's just like, do the Flynn Rider, do the Flynn Rider, and I'm like, okay. But it's
I
a
think,
beautiful thing. I recognize how grateful I am.
where do you do your lives? Where can people see you if they want to?
So I like streaming on TikTok because the platform is really useful for like easy live streaming, and it's got good energy. I've built like a beautiful fan. I mean, I'm not a huge success yet. I'm working on it. I've got like 70,000 fans so far, so we're working towards the process. But the ones I have, they keep showing so much awesome love and so much genuine appreciation. And I mean, I keep telling them, and it's going to sound the cheesiest thing in the entire world, but I would not be anything I am without my fans, because they fundamentally are the lifeblood that gives my projects energy. Because without them, they wouldn't, these projects wouldn't have an audience, and I wouldn't be able to even achieve what I do. I think as actors, we've got to remember we are servants to our fans. Like they're the ones we want to please. They're the ones we want to entertain. They're the ones we want to make time for, and alongside family and friends, always very important to have balance. But it is so important to give them the appreciation that's due. I mean, I know as things and time goes on, when I get millions of people that love seeing what I do, I'm not going to have time to message every single one of them back. But I sit here now. I've blocked out like 20 minutes just so I can respond to 60 messages from people because they've said how I'm not doing it. But, like it's thank you. I try. But it's also it's real, and I think people, if they look at you like this unattainable thing, like this they put you on this pedestal, I think it dehumanizes you a lot, and I don't think I want to be dehumanized. I want to be in a coffee shop and sitting there reading a book and have a guy come up to me and say, "Oh mate, I loved you in X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's great to me. What did you like about it? What's your favorite?" And just be real as much as I can with people, because
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
It's funny because like there's been a big shift. Like when you think about like movie stars of like the 40s and the 50s, they were pedestal people who no one knew anything about them. It was just this whole, like, they were magical people that just showed up on a screen every once in a while.
Yeah.
And now in the age of social media, it's like those connections mean something more, and it gets people to go see your work. It's pretty interesting. Like when you think about just the last 100 years, how much has changed significantly in production.
It's a beautiful thing, John. 100%.
I think TikTok, actually, believe it or not, has actually helped with that, because they've kind of stole it the limelight of Instagram, which was very influencer and celebrity and like airbrushed and all this, and TikTok's like just be yourself, and people are craving more authentic people
Just
to
some rough
follow.
and ready real life photos and videos and stuff. It's great.
Well, at
Yeah,
least that's what they're telling you, and then they put a filter on it and everything else, and they're just trying to sneak by.
I mean, I've seen my TikTok videos. I look rough. I am not special looking. I haven't got nearly enough Hollywood makeup on for that.
Dan, where can people
Yeah.
watch you? Is any of the stuff you've done recently going to be like be able to review like televised or anything like that?
So there's a lot of my stuff is on Amazon. We have quite a few shows on Amazon Prime. You can actually, to be fair, if you want on Amazon, you can search my name, Dan Robinson. It'll show you all the titles that I'm part of on Amazon, so you can
Amazing.
watch and rent and enjoy to your heart's content. Absolutely, yeah. I think my IMDb has all of the projects. A really awesome one. I was absolutely like so pleasurable being on that set, but I got to work with Bill Nye, who is a sort of iconic British actor, and I had a really beautiful, really short scene with him. But that was Living. I think it was his Oscar-nominated film, and it was just that one's available on Sky Store, I think at the moment. But yeah, they're all over the place. Honestly, you can. You're also welcome
That's
to
really
DM me
cool.
and say where can I find your stuff, and I'll try and help you out.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
like when you were mentioning Amazon Prime, like that's a whole new industry shift, but that was all happening as you were coming into it. So you didn't experience like the before times of say like you get a network show, you're on for a couple of years, and then you move on to the next thing. With streaming, it's almost been a pivot to where great content is no longer just for the big screen. There are these series that are created that are just unreal to watch. I mean, I think if you look back, it probably started with HBO, like back in like The Sopranos and The Wire and like and those types of shows, like really making cinematic TV. And now you're starting with the streaming. Do you see more opportunities now, like or in the future with those platforms available?
It's a mixed response, like amongst the actors and sort of in the production side of things. People love the accessibility and the speed we can make content, but I think one thing we're trying to be careful of is the quality reduction in a lot of ways. Like we can put a lot of money behind stuff, doesn't mean it's going to be good. And I think in some aspects we've possibly even lost our way with our approach to some narrative driven stories. There's some incredible ones out there that do come out of the woodwork and they do incredibly well, and more often than not it's a remake of something that was made 60 years ago, ironically. And it's a thing. I know it's going to stick around. Obviously it's going to stick around because it's the future. I think we're going to see a shift into immersive content. So basically they're probably going to be developing, I would imagine, if they're smart, 360 cameras that will record so someone can immerse themselves into a film, and headsets on and sound sets on, and kind of live the film experience as it plays through as though you're on the shoulder of one of the actors or whatnot. That would be a very likely development in the online platform of a movie. I've seen some people looking into the idea of it. At the moment it's obscenely expensive. And also AI. I mean, that's something
I was going to bring this up actually. AI.
I'll wait for the question, then I can answer it properly if you like.
I'll ask you it now. So I was going to ask, obviously, with John and I being photographers, and the new AI that's coming, especially with Photoshop, how do you feel it's going to? Do you think it's going to take on in the acting world, or do you think it's going to be something that's going to enhance it but not take actors' jobs? And how do you feel about it personally, I guess?
I'm in absolutely two minds. I love it and hate it in the same vein. It's incredible how far it's come and how quickly. The struggle I have is taking that skill set away from people that have put their energy into their craft. From even from a cinematographer's point of view, a photographer's point of view, an actor's point of view, I feel like we spend and will spend years developing how to get the perfect shot and how to make the light flow across the face and how to move through this smoke and the atmosphere that we have in the scene, how to build the gravitas and cinematography through that moment. And AI does present a problem with that. I do, however, feel it's probably going to split the industry. There's going to be a lot of very quick, very easy to make AI consumable content. But on the other hand, I think it will also build a wider and more intense following for people that prefer traditional creation of media, whether it be photography, whether it be videography, film and TV. It's in its infancy, so everyone's very excited about it. But I think it will cause, like how you have Hollywood blockbusters and A24, the brand that kind of came out of nowhere with a lot of their productions. It's going to have a divide, but there's going to be incredibly passionate people that will absolutely sustain the life of it. I do think it will affect what sort of work actors may get and how actors will work on things they do. But also, I've had writer's block when I've been doing a scene, and AI has given me like 7 different concepts to help finish a scene off to make it make sense, because my brain just couldn't get there. So I think using it conducively as a tool is always going to be helpful, but don't use it to replace the skill sets we have available, because genuine ingenuity.
Yeah, I've been viewing AI as like, when you think about any creative endeavor, you have, to me, there's 2 key elements. There's talent, and then there's a skill set. And the skill set is something that you work at. So you can have inherent talent, but if you don't work at it, like that's your cap. Like you're like wherever your talent is, that's your limit. You have to build the skills beyond that. You can, if you have no talent, you can build enough skills to be functioning, but it's going to be clear that somebody has more talent than you. And I think with AI, it can replicate the skill sets. It can acquire skills faster than any human can, because it's pulling from everything. But I don't know that we can actually replicate talent in that way. So I think that that's where you're going to see the difference, is that talented people have to acquire the skills, but AI is just and it's an untalented person acquiring functioning skills, but not extraordinary skills. So I think you're right. I think you're going to see a big gap. My worry is production companies, if they're just pushing as much as they can to keep eyes on the screen, do they rely on the skill set stuff? Just it's mediocre enough to put out that they start to not put money into the things that really inspire us. And that's where I get worried about some of these things.
It's a genuine worry, and I appreciate where you're coming from. It's a thing that we can't predict how it's going to be. We can't predict how it's going to feel. We can't predict how it's going to develop. But at the end of the day, we do understand that people love good shit and original shit where possible. I'm not saying, obviously Hollywood is the king of remaking, but when we get something original and it's done well, AI doesn't have the capacity to create something from nothing. It has to create something on existing ideas and existing concepts. The beautiful thing we have in humanity and in society is we have the capacity to create something that has never existed before and has never had the concept of being an opportunity before. And, AI, will take that and be able to use that as a skill once it's been created. But I think when you have talent with a strong skill set, AI will never be able to match that, because you're talking someone who can create a new idea that's never existed before, deliver that idea to a high standard. Yes, AI can then learn that idea and do it faster in the future, but you need people to have those ideas. Otherwise, AI is just going to be recycling the same crap and people are going to get bored of it.
So creatives listening, it's okay. We're going to be okay, guys.
What you just said there was actually like the first conversation that Steph and I had. And the reason for this podcast was that there are people who are making new things and putting new things into the world, and we want to talk to them. And it was just like, that was the whole impetus of this whole thing, was like creators of all different walks of life. The thing that they share is that they're making something new and adding it to the world. And that's why we're talking. We're 2 photographers, but we're 2 very different photographers. You're an actor. Like we're going to be talking to musicians and people who make things and put new things in the world. And that was the whole impetus of this whole podcast, because
John
I think that's something we celebrated.
You met on TikTok?
Yeah, we've never met in real life. We met on TikTok.
That's crazy. I love that.
I'm 5 hours away from you guys.
Jump on the plane.
You know what we should do? Like when we've been going like a year or something, we should have like a big podcast meetup with all the guests that have been on, and we'll just have a big party.
To be fair, I have a friend in Philadelphia, so that was where you're from, wasn't it, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend in Philadelphia. Anyway, I have to go out and visit her. She wants to show me the sights, and I'm like, you know what? Now I have another excuse. It's like we've got double whammy coming up.
There you go.
Well, I want to go.
I mean, come with. We'll go on a sightseeing tour. It's fine.
Yes.
Oh, bless
So,
you.
can I ask you some juicy questions?
Oh, juicy. Oh God, how
Yeah.
juicy we're gonna get. We're not gonna
Okay.
go like Love Island juicy, are we?
No.
We'll see.
So what is the big dream? This pie in the sky dream? Is it Hollywood? Is it West End?
Oh, I'm going to be political in the answer. Sorry, because
Go
West
on.
End might come calling one day. You never know. No, in all serious, I refuse to believe acting goals should ever be a dream anymore. I used to think of it. Oh, I dream of being this. I dream of being that. But I realize how impractical that is because a dream is only ever going to be a dream. And if I think of it like this is my end goal, I've just got to take steps. Everything's a step to this goal. And my goal is 100%. Like, I want to be an action movie star. Like I want to be, jumping off buildings. I want to be driving fast cars. I want to be doing obscene stunts with guns and weapons and things like this because that's the stuff that I'm excited by. And then mixed into that, throw in a couple of crazy bad guy characters and a little bit of sci-fi drama and stuff. Why not? But yeah, I just think that to be a movie star is the absolute for me, and I'm just excited to see what steps I'm going to be taking along the way with ones I don't even know about yet. It's got to be up here and I'm down here and I'm taking like 2 steps. Like I'm so far from
You're
my
moving
goal.
though. You're moving.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like I could be doing this for the next 10 years and only achieve another step, but then out of nowhere, a year later, I could go all the way to the top out of nothing. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think that as long as I have a goal in place and a process in place, I know I'm doing everything right. And I think keeping that in mind, because if I think of it like a dream, everything's a bit too airy fairy, doesn't really exist. And it's important to me that it's tangible.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't think it's an impossible dream to be like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, and which is out 2 days ago. When the streams will be out for a month. But yeah, it's like everything should always be referred to. If you want to achieve it, it should be a goal. It's never a dream because a goal is possible. A goal is step by step. A goal is it will happen.
And
Now,
do
you
you
said
write
you're-
these steps down? Sorry, John.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I sort of see ones I've done where I've got to like, what's the next one? Have I dropped back a few steps? I've done that a couple of times, dropped up a few steps. Like where do I sit? But as long as I'm aware of it, like a mountain has so many peaks along the way. Like you get to a mini peak, you go down a little bit, you go back up, you go down a little bit, you go back up.
Yeah.
But eventually there's no more mini peaks. Eventually there's just the peak and you reach that and that's like, I'm here. All right, what's next?
I fucking love that mentality. Yes, Dan. Amazing. That's so inspiring, honestly. It's making me go like, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned earlier that you're dabbling in the production and the writing side. Is that a goal for you, or is that just another creative outlet for you to create the stories that you want to put yourself into? Like, is it a method? Is it a I guess what I'm saying, is it an outcome, or is it like, oh, if I write good stories, I'll always be working? Like, what's the
If I'm writing something, it's because I believe I can help someone. So I don't actively go out of my way to just write something. I think there's some beautiful stories that need to be told from incredibly talented writers and people that already exist. And I 100% want to be helping them with their projects. But if I'm writing something, it's because someone has struggled to get somewhere or has struggled to achieve something or needs to achieve something. Or I haven't done something yet. And I'm like, well, that'd be kind of fun. Let's put this into a short film. Why not? And it's just a thing where I get the opportunity to fill gaps and also, I can't give people £1 million to make their dreams come true, but I can give people a
not
step
yet?
on the ladder. Yeah, not yet. The goal, the
Not
goal
yet.
is
Give it 10
one day
years
I
for
will,
that big
be
step.
there. I'll be 10 years. I'll be no. I'll open up my I've got a goal to open up one of my own acting schools and kind of get those students into their first productions as well, because a lot of acting schools just give you a degree and then send you off into the wild and hope for the best. But I want to open a proper acting school that gets people the foundation of screen and TV acting, which is my personal enjoyment. I think it's awesome. And also in that vein, because I create these stories, by then I'm going to be known for creating stories. So I'm going to bring on people that would work with me to create stories and give these people opportunities in high quality productions. I think it's just it means that acting can become even more accessible for anyone that wants to say, you know what, it's not an impossible thing anymore. You don't have to be from someone who knew someone like, I don't know, like some actor's son or whatever to get a job. Like, no, you can make it by putting in the work and being a good person to work with.
Yeah, yeah. And there used to be a big sense of elitism as well around acting, especially if we're going to go to drama school, and obviously the fees are like crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think social media and how the world is now and how accessible streaming is, and putting yourself on a platform like YouTube or wherever it might be, has made it just more accessible for everyone. You don't have to be from an elite background, you know. It can be from Joe next door, you know, which is amazing.
Well, my background is I'm from a family who were on the lower working class. Like we were, when I was a kid, struggling to afford to put fuel in the car. So I think it's all a process that means, I mean, if I can do it, I can just imagine how many thousands of people I can inspire to at least say, you know what, I'm not in a rich family, but I can still make this happen because I really want it. And I think if someone really wants it, they deserve the opportunity to try.
Oh, love that. Love that.
It's interesting because like there's a lot of like, and it's like, I mean, yeah, in what world are Steph and I going to become radio hosts? But the access to entry for some of these things now is so low that we can just do it poorly, put it out into the world and get better. And with social media, Steph, you were saying about social media, like I'd be curious now, kids that are growing up with that as just a thing that they know, like they have an opportunity to explore performing, because I mean, we all do it as real as we want to be on our videos and things like that. We are definitely putting on a performance in some way, and some are definitely better at it than others. And I'm curious, like with kids now, when they're putting on these performances, if they get the bug to do it professionally, like if they, yeah, or do they all just want to be influencers, and then we just end up in this influencer bubble where everybody's just influencing each other, and then that's the end of, and then a black hole sucks everything in,
An influencer made black hole. Someone will use that as marketing as well. Like, I've just made this influencer black hole. You're very welcome.
Darlings.
New social media.
Going back to your fans, have you ever had a fan that's like a bit loop-de-loo and like doing crazy things?
I think we all
He's trying to be political now.
We all react differently when we meet someone that we admire, and I've become very, very jittery when I met. I mean, I was on the premiere red carpet for Tom Cruise's Maverick. It blew me away, and I looked over and I was just smiling, all people taking pictures and everything. Looked over to my right, and Tom was like 10 meters away from me. I was like, oh my god, it's like the biggest moment of my life.
Did you fanboy a little bit?
I absolutely unashamedly fanboyed and just lost my absolute. Yeah, it's crazy. He was my dad VHS tape Top Gun, the original. That was my first experience of movies that I remember. So I'm like, he has been my childhood. But when it comes to like meeting people who have recognized me in public, which is also still kind of surreal because 3 years ago I was in an office, but the idea of like people have seen something I've done and recognized my face and have come up to me and said, oh my god, you did da. And I'm like, hi person, how are you? And I still don't quite know how to, because some of them are really excited and very flamboyant in their attitudes and very, very jumpy. Some of them are really chill, just want a selfie, and that's adorable as well. I love that. Some people have written in to me for fan mail. I've signed photos and sent them back. And
wait, you get fan mail? This is amazing.
Well, you don't?
I'm not saying it's a lot. I'm not saying it's a lot. It's strange because I'm not at that stage. People think I'm at that stage and I'm not. Like, I'm sitting there in my room and I'm just like looking at the things that have been sent to my PO box, and I'm like, okay, just like most people have like managers and teams, and I'm like just little old me sitting there with pictures that people have printed off that want me to sign them and send them back. And it's really weird.
I had a friend who was just doing little bits of acting until he got a role in Game of Thrones, and then all of a sudden he was getting fan mail. He was a bit like, I don't know what to do. I was like,
It's so
oh, do you want to
strange,
reply to them
isn't
all?
Well, I'm sure what's weird is that they connect to the character, and then they have a backstory about you, and it's like a weird imbalance. Like when you meet somebody new, it's like, okay, I don't know anything about you, you don't know anything about me. We're going to introduce each other, and we're gonna figure it out. But like, I guess when people come up to you, not only do they not know anything about you, they know about somebody that you portrayed, and it's like, okay, let's unpack that for a second, and okay, take that part away. How you doing? I'm Dan.
Yeah, yeah, that's oh, that's so true. Oh my god, yeah, no, no, because you're right, because they watch you in a thing, playing a thing, doing a thing, and they're like, so that's who you are. And I'm like, no, that's what acting is. Hang on a minute, and then you got to because I check myself, and I'm like, yeah, you met Landon, or you met James, or you met Major Williams, and I'm like, you haven't met me. That's crazy because you think I'm some derivative of these characters, and it's like, yeah, no, because you see them kind of in the situations that have happened. Well, gratefully, it's only been a couple that have been a bit like, oh my god, you're this character. Um, and I think when you have a second and then you start talking like, oh no, no, thank you for the appreciation. My name's Dan, and I'm like, you don't sound like that. Like one of might have an American accent or something, or whatever it might be, like whatever the role requires. Like I've been an American, I've been an Australian, I've been a high class Brit, I've been a roadman chav. It's like,
I
and
cannot
they
imagine you being a
assume,
roadman.
mate, I
Do you
honestly
have a natural knack for accents? Because I
no.
can't do any accents at all. Like, was that something that you really had to push through to get an accent, or was that something you just had a natural inclination for?
A lot of training, and without doing them, I definitely lose them. American is probably my most comfortable, but I'm still out of practice with that because I haven't had to use it for the last like 3 roles. Although I say that, I've just shot myself in the foot as well because I'm being shortlisted for 2 productions, and both of them are lead roles as an American guy, and I'm like, I've got to get back on my training. Like
Maybe you
my,
could do
my
a little
accent.
bit now, Dan, in front of a
Oh
real
god, don't do that.
American.
Oh god. All
Good.
right, cool.
Okay,
American
good,
accent,
good,
cool.
good.
Dan in the American, right? Well, hey, how are you guys doing? My name's Dan. I'm from General America. I'm not sure whereabouts that is, but it's kind of cool to be here. What are you guys doing? What are you guys up to? That's cool. Oh my god, we're doing a podcast. You serious? That's
Oh, that's
it's
really
hard to
natural as well. That comes like just to me. How does it sound to an American?
it's hard.
Well, it's here's the thing, and I'm sure you guys notice it in England, and we talked about how big America is. The number
Yeah,
of accents that are in this country that are just like all over. So he doesn't sound
that's
like
so
he's from
many.
my neighborhood, like
No,
like
Yeah.
this general.
you're
The only
East
one who
America, right?
actually really did it well was what was it, Mayor of Easttown? Um,
It's down.
was it Kate Winslet? Like that was based in my neck of the woods, and
Yeah,
her like the suburbs that I grew up in, right outside of Philadelphia. Like the accent's unique, and she nailed it. And it was like everybody here was like, "Oh my god! Like how did she pull that off?" Because it sounded like somebody from Delaware County. Like it was like one of those like weird things. But yeah,
yeah.
I think that's the other tough part. Like, but to me, every English accent sounds like an English accent. Like I can't tell the difference
Oh,
between.
really?
Well, it's just like it's so fundamentally different from mine that I can't tell the nuances between Birmingham and London. Like I wouldn't be able to pick that up like you guys would,
Oh,
right?
that's interesting.
That's really, yeah, that's cool. I like, I mean, to be fair, it makes sense because we aren't trained to hear that all the time. We live it, breathe it. Like in America, you live, breathe the umpteen accents you've got. Like
Yeah.
the Texans are not going to sound anything like the Californians, and it's so it. America's beautiful for your accents. Honestly, you have so many.
The ones that I can hear in America are like a southern like hi you want nice tea, that one, and then like get your stupid dog, Dior,
Yeah.
and then like
We
oh my god wait what, which is
I think you did
California,
just
and
do the
that's it.
South.
That's
Yeah,
it.
like that was a Brooklyn, a Tech, some sort of Southern Carolina or something, and then over in the West Coast, we were on California for a second there. That was great.
But
yeah.
that's the only three that I can
Well, and it's
identify.
funny, like if you, I mean, and if you ever spend any time in New York, you will actually hear those accents. Like it's very. I could pick up a New York accent, like because it's only a couple hours away from here. That like,
Yeah.
oh, you're from New York. Um, but yeah, so it's like there's subtle nuances, and in Boston is a completely different accent. Yeah, if you've ever heard anybody from Boston, it is a wild accent. Like it's just
Is it Mark Wahlberg who's from
yeah,
Boston?
yep,
He's a pat a car kind of. I can't do his accent. It's so weird. Like, hey, pat
yeah,
a car. I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like that's just
and
like you're making up
well,
letters.
like Good Will Hunting is a great one because those guys were all they were from Boston. So like that, like how you like them apples, like that.
And you're like,
Them
"Mm,
apples.
Do you find it easier to do regional British accents rather than like something totally different, or is it easier for you to say, I'm going to switch in the American accent and I'm just going to move there? Like, because to me, there are, you guys clearly have different voices, but like, I'm not picking up the tonal differences that a local would. So like for you, like to me, to the untrained ear, it's very subtle. But for you guys, it's much more profound. Like, do you find like playing in that space is easier or more difficult?
I find it much more comfortable to go stark differences when it comes to accents because I can kind of lose any familiarity I have in my voice. So I tend to not when I've done a bit of training. Sorry about that. I tend to not get caught by my own voice by that point because you can if you're so close to your vocal range, I find it quite easy to slip into a word or two that's my own accent, and I kind of fall out of that character for a moment. If it's stark differences, it's much easier to kind of tear myself those sort of splits. You use completely different muscles, completely different breathing patterns, and yeah, I think it's a lot more comfortable for me to separate myself further. Some people are incredible at regional accents in the UK, and I respect them immensely, but it's just not a skill set I'm particularly versed in.
Is it maybe more when it's a dramatic difference between your own accent and when you're trying to do it, I think it's maybe easier, do you say, to pick up because it's such a dramatic. Whereas when it's just subtle, it's like
Yeah, I'd be excited to kind of get my head around like a Geordie accent, so a Newcastle kind of person or a Manchester Mancunian accent,
Newcastle.
Manchester accent. Yeah, I think that would be fun. I think to try and do an Essex maybe that's just north of London. That one's a bit of a struggle because it bears some similarities if you're not trying to be a stereotypical Essex person because
Yeah.
typically it's very different, but also realistically, so you don't offend everyone in Essex, it's not like that. So it's like you got to find the balance where you're going to be honoring the culture of that place and not offending it either. I think that's also very important to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're trying very hard to keep this within an hour because me and John will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So like
Make
our
sure we get
first
all the
one was
quality
like,
you want, all the questions you want to ask. I mean, I don't want to leave the audience without something they wanted to hear or whatever. If there's any burning questions, please.
Well, we're just going to have them send you fan mail with all their weird
yeah.
questions.
Oh God, I got to work sometimes, guys. I can't be signing everything all the time.
It's when you get sent random like locks of hair in the post or something like that, and you're like, oh God.
I'm waiting for my first lock of hair or like underwear that hasn't been sent yet. So I'm grateful that people have kept it very professional in that regard.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're a bit disappointed. Like, no,
I was going to say, like, it could escalate and get very scary when they send you your own stuff, and you're like, we.
Where did
Wait,
that was on my desk 2 weeks ago. Oh God, that would freak me out. Can you imagine? It's just something simple like a pen of like I've lost my pen. Where is it? It just gets delivered to me. Like, feel free to sign my photos with this. I'm like, what just happened?
I do have a one last question, Dan. So if you ever need a photographer for one of your famous films, you know where to look, right?
Absolutely. I'm gonna always need a BTS photographer. Always need a BTS photographer. If you got some videography in you as well, why not?
I do have videography in me. I do that in my 9 to 5.
Hey, oh God, I can't make
Hey.
you do 95 as well. That'd be a nightmare. We'll stick to
I know.
BTS. Yeah, give you some give you some other stuff to do, not just videography stuff.
I'm up for it. Cool. Right. We shall wrap this up. But Dan, you have been chatty and inspiring and insightful, and it's been lovely having you on.
And then where should people find you?
If they want to check me out, you can pop onto Instagram. That's Dan Robbins Actor. 1B. Don't go for 2. I'm not Tony Robbins. He's a different guy. Or you can watch my lives if you want to on TikTok. Join the fan base. That's also Dan Robbins Actor with 1B.
Do you do it at a specific time each week?
I don't, because my schedule has no schedule, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
that
am
makes
the
sense.
most unscheduled scheduled person.
Okay,
But yeah, no,
well,
pop on and yeah, say hi.
I'm going to pop on your next live.
It'll be a
I'm going
pleasure.
to
I'll say,
find you
what's
and
up,
pop
Ada?
on. I'm like, "Ooh." Cool.
Oh,
Well,
bless
thank you so
Thank
much for your
guys.
time, Dan. It's been so nice talking to you again.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, John, Steph. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on, and I'm glad I could be of some, hopefully, use to someone who might watch this at some point and be like, that really helped me. That was interesting. That's good to know. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I found it very interesting just because, as Steph and I were talking, it's like creativity is so different among all the different fields, but like there's common threads, and just hearing some of the things that you're doing, it related back to some things that we've done. And it's just like, I just find that fascinating. So